know each other, but not everybody knows each other real well yet. So let's do that. And this is Alyssa Klein from VRS as our transition pre-ETS specialist. Lindsay.
Hi, Lindsay Horowitz, post-secondary transition specialist with MDE.
All right, Debbie.
Hi, I'm Debbie Nelson. I'm the lead counselor with Minneapolis Public Schools.
Thanks. Barb.
Hi, I'm Barb Deming here as a consultant supporting Lindsay and Alyssa's work in pre-ETS in general, and today I'll be taking notes.
Yay. Thanks, Barb. Taylor.
Taylor McLaughlin, I'm the Employment Services Director at MSS.
Thank you. Tammy.
Hi, I'm Tammy McDonald, Employment Specialist with MSS.
All right, Song.
Hi, I'm Song, and I'm the pre-ed rep over at Northeast Minneapolis.
Thank you. Jay.
Hi, I'm Jay McGregor, Vocational Evaluator and Employment Specialist at MSS.
All right, Stephanie.
Hello, Stephanie LaRusso, Counselor, Northeast Minneapolis at Edison.
Your daughter's not there. Did she get to go back to school?
No, they're both still here.
Ah.
Next week.
Oh, yeah. Font.
Hello, Thought Pearson, manager with the North and Northeast Minneapolis team.
Yay. And Becky.
Hi, Becky Sunder, Metro Regional Director for Voc Rehab Services. Good morning, everyone. It's almost afternoon. I can't tell. I'm in the basement, so thank you.
Doesn't really matter. The days all blend together.
All right, well, we're gonna spend most of our time, I'll be handing it over to Debbie. She's gonna do some training on My Life Plan and Naviance. We met with the Southwest team a couple days ago. We used up almost the whole time, but I think we got through quite a bit, and people asked questions as we went along. So I think Debbie, you did a fabulous job. So I think this will be helpful to all of you. Also, Lindsay's recording this, so you can watch it back again later. So why don't we just go get in, or I'll hand it over to Debbie. Let her take it from here.
All right, sounds good. Thanks. Yeah, I feel bad for the few people who are sitting on this for the second time to go through the same training, but I'm excited to show the Edison team the overview of My Life Plan and Naviance, kind of calling it a training, but it really is an overview of both systems. And I'll show you as many examples as I possibly can. We have a student that has been working with, who signed up for pre-ETS through this pilot program that we'll use as an example, and that will be helpful. But there are some limitations. And as we go through, when I'm showing you things on Naviance, you'll see that sometimes it's kind of hard to see everything, but I will start with a little overview of My Life Plan. So, okay, are you all seeing my screen right now?
We are, yep, we're following you.
Okay. Here we go. All right, let's start from the beginning. So some of this is a review from one of the meetings that we had earlier in the year, but whoops. What happened?
I don't know. It's like it stopped sharing on you.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I tried to click present, so I think, oh, they're so close to each other. That's why. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with My Life Plan. So as a reminder, what My Life Plan is, the district-wide college and career readiness curriculum. It's a curriculum that we deliver to students grades 6 through 12 in the district. Generally, how it's delivered is by school counselors And at the high school level, also the Achieve College and Career Center and Gear Up coordinators where they exist as well. So the counselors and coordinators gain time in the classrooms, you know, usually push into like social studies or English classes to deliver lessons throughout the year. We've been using a district-wide curriculum for about 10 years, and it was recently revised, and that also poses some interesting things for us, but we'll talk through them. So the objectives of my life plan is that we're getting this college and career curriculum to all students. We try and make it as engaging and culturally relevant as possible. We connect the lessons to one another per grade level, but also on a continuum all the way from 6th through 12th grade. So they're building a portfolio and building an understanding of what they're going to do after high school. And just, you know, trying to make this as relevant and important that parents are seeing the importance, that all of our stakeholders are seeing the importance of this work. So as I was mentioning, it's developing a continuous post-secondary plan. When we talk about post-secondary plans, it's anything that the student is planning on doing after high school. So a lot of times, a lot of the activities do have some college components, but part of it being relevant for all of our students as we broaden that scope out to include, it could be careers that they're planning on going directly into, or short-term training programs, military, you know, technical type trades, apprenticeship, you know, try and be as inclusive as possible on what a possible post-secondary plan is. So they build a foundation, do lots of exploration, and eventually preparation for that plan. And Naviance is helpful in creating a portfolio that they use, that they'll be able to save and continuously use through this process. So what students do at each grade level and through each lesson is there's an activity. The activity is usually like a survey, inventory, some other hands-on activities. And then we, as counselors, we have a data collection system so that we can see what students have completed, and that we're, you know, constantly trying to work at getting as many students to have completed these things as possible. So there's about 5 to 7 lessons, depending on what grade level we're talking about, that are delivered throughout the year. And every lesson, you know, builds on each other and hopefully has incorporated some reflection time for them to dig deep into what they want to do with their future. And then, like I said, there's usually an activity or some sort of exit ticket that's recorded on Naviance. And that's how we can measure not only the student's progress, but also sort of the counselor coordinator progress, you know, how many students they're reaching and things like that. And we'll talk more about Naviance in a little bit. Sorry, what I can't see is what number slide I'm on, but I think, so with my life plan, let me just, yeah, okay. So with my life plan, you know, every activity, 6th through 12th grade, we consider required for graduation. And so that we're really truly building a solid post-secondary plan with the student based on their individual situation and interests. We have the ability to adapt lessons for our students with disabilities. And, you know, that's part of the whole Pre-ETS pilot program and ongoing plan with this is that we're meeting the students where they need. When we do this, the My Life Plan lessons, for instance, we're usually doing, they're delivered through a classroom. So that classroom could have 35 kids in it, and we're teaching this lesson and helping them through these activities. And we know that if they've completed it or not, because they do something, like I said before, the activity on Naviance. But what we don't know a lot of times is how that individual student was able to access the information. Did they fully complete the assignment? Were they just clicking buttons? Did they not understand? And that's where we can go back in with you as the Pre-ETS providers to really ensure that these activities, either they, you know, if they haven't completed them, going back in and working with individual students or small groups of students to help them complete the activities, or to go through what they've already completed and kind of check, did this resonate with you? Does it make sense? Is this still accurate? Do you want to retake something? Things like that. Those are all the kinds of things that we can adapt for working with our students with disabilities. So here is just an overview of what we do with the My Life Plan with our high school students. So each, you can kind of see, these are just the, you know, kind of the titles of each thing that we're doing with them for each year. But 9th grade is kind of focused on identity. So they kind of start with, what do they need to know to be a successful high school student? What are the things that, you know, credit, counting, GPA, you know, things that, you know, how to study, things like that. Then they do a lesson on personal social identity, also electronic identity, and they do a personality inventory in 9th grade currently. 10th grade kind of switches over more to that career research. They start early in the year by doing a career interest inventory. And then there's 2 separate lessons, one that's focused on trades and technical programs that are out there in the world, and one that's more focused on college opportunities, 2 to 4-year colleges. And then they also participate in a career experience in 10th grade. And that could be, you know, when we're in person, it could be, you know, college and career fairs, it could be guest speakers, it could be informational interviews, things like that. 11th grade kind of switches to considering what is their, continuing the research on what their post-secondary plans are, but also considering how they're going to finance their different opportunities. So there's a lot of talk about FAFSA completion and how much does college cost and things like that. They do a multiple intelligences inventory in 11th grade. And there's also a lesson that kind of focuses on soft and transferable skills that will help them wherever they end up. And then 12th grade is kind of that hands-on sort of application time. Are they applying to, what do they need to do to fill out college applications, or how do they access applying to trades and technical programs or the military or even jobs? So thinking about resumes and things like that. Again, financing, what those plans are, some financial literacy for life types of things, and the other things that are required that they need to do to physically graduate. So that's kind of the big overview of My Life Plan. I just want to pause there to see if there's any questions just about the curriculum, how it's delivered, things like that.
Debbie, I'll just jump in and say I think what you said about the fact that with this pilot or in this work that we're going to do, that I think that's a key piece, that even though it's checked off that a student's done something, that our role can be to really review things again with them to make sure, just to see, because again, we all know you go through a lesson and then time goes on, and did it resonate? Did it stick with them? So reviewing those things, there's like really no harm in that. And I think that's a big part of what we can do.
Yeah, and as we go through some examples with the students from Edison, you'll see where I'll be able to exactly show you some holes and things like that that we definitely can address through this program. One thing I will share with you, so I will share this drive with you, or this folder with you, where we have our lessons built into a Google Doc, so you'll be able to see. So I'm going to click on the 12th grade folder here, and in here it shows, this will be really helpful for you to have this information when you're working with students. So it gives you an overview of each of the, why can't I move this? Yeah. All right, so for example, the first lesson for every grade level is a beginning of the year check-in and needs assessment. So you can see what it is, and then the lesson overview, what we are going to cover in that lesson when we're in the classroom. And, we put some modifications in here for distance learning. And then, so it just goes on, then there's 12.2 all the way through all the different lessons. I should point out that for our seniors, there are some things like this 12.3 where it says this is not a lesson, because when we work with our seniors, a lot of times we do some classroom lessons, but a lot of stuff becomes very individualized. And these are more like sitting down with a counselor and going through like what they need to graduate. It's all very individualized. So there's a couple of those with our seniors, but then like 12.6, the financial literacy piece, that would also be a classroom lesson. But I'm going to show you 12.1. So the overview is here, but then you can click on the actual PowerPoint that we use when we are in the classroom. And so you can see like what the lesson looks like. So if you were working with a student individually or a couple students, you would have access to this too, and you could kind of go through some of the same things. So with 12.1, we just kind of remind them again of what is my life plan? What are we working on? What's this? What is this thing when counselors come into your classroom? This is a seniors we're talking to, so they're going to cover that this year. That it's really time to be applying for colleges or really figuring out your post-secondary plan. So what can you expect? Just lots of good information that we share with students. Again, a lot of it is focused on colleges, but we try throughout this whole curriculum be inclusive. But there's definitely a push for students in their senior year to apply to college too. But questions to think about. This is good because there's some links here to how you can do some career and college research. Thinking about deadlines, senior meetings, are those individual meetings? reminding students that, you know, you gotta really check your emails. Everything's on text. So again, a lot of this is just very specific information to seniors. But then they get to the welcome survey that they fill out, and I'll show you some examples of this when they go ahead and do it on Naviance, but they just have an overview here that when they fill it out, what kind of questions are going to be there. Remind them that the only people who see this are their counselors, and you know, and then we can impart, and obviously if they're working with you, you're going to see it too. And then kind of that purpose. Why are we doing this? How does this help us? How does this help you? Then some instructions for getting onto Naviance. And that is an overview of a specific lesson. So I think it will be really helpful when you have this in your back pocket to when you're working with students, because you'll be able to go through some of the lessons with them. So again, pausing for any questions at this point. You guys are a quiet group. I swear by this time on Tuesday, we had like lots of questions. So I hope this is all making sense.
I have a question. This is Tammy with MSS. Can you scroll down the student learning targets?
Yep, how far did you want me to go down?
I was just looking at the mindsets and behaviors, the M3, M4. What is that again? Yeah.
So ASCA is the American School Counseling Association, and so they guide our work on a national level.
Okay.
And then they have a set of mindsets and behaviors. And so we try so there's basically standards. They're just a different word for standards.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're just indicating here what standards we're meeting through each lesson.
So if we were to, you know, receive a student that has already started some of this, would it have, you know, this filled in on the side of what the modifications may have been for that individual?
This column here is, so note that we revised this whole curriculum and basically recreated documents and everything, and it's still a work in progress. So our goal is to have this column filled out for each of our lessons. It's just something that the team of revision folks we've been talking and planning, and Pre-ETS would be part of what we would put here. But this overview, or these lesson overviews, this folder I'll share with you, is not specific to students, to individual students. So this is just what we deliver to all students.
Right, that's what I meant, sorry. Yes, I mean, not writing, I just didn't know if you had, I didn't know if for certain students on the overview, you had put in different modifications, because obviously every student is different. So, okay, that explains it, thank you.
Yeah, and if I was showing you like some of our other grade levels right now, some of that would be filled in. We've still got some holes. We're still, you know, creating all the documents, but we're working on it. So eventually this will have something there. Any other questions? I think it would be helpful when I switch over to Naviance, because then you'll be able to see how this plays out on that end of things. So. All right, so moving on to Naviance. What Naviance is it's a software system that we access in Minneapolis, and it's used across the country. So it's completely web-based. Students can use it from any computer that has the internet. And it's basically a huge system of different college planning and career assessment tools. And Naviance has lots and lots of like components that, and many of them that we don't use in Minneapolis, but they might use in another district in another, city or state. Naviance adapts their system to what your school district is looking for. So we utilize a lot of components to it, but there's more components we don't use right now because it just doesn't fit into our My Life Plan curriculum, or we do it in a different way with students. We don't need Naviance to do it. So, but it's just a huge well-used system across the country. What happens is Naviance and our Minneapolis Public Schools databases talk to each other. And so every student is automatically included in the Naviance database, and it rolls every single night. So even if a student enrolled today in Minneapolis Public Schools had never been a student in Minneapolis Public Schools before, they'll automatically be in Naviance tomorrow. So those two systems talk to each other. And once they're in the database, they're automatically included in all the tasks and programs that we've set up for them on Naviance. And like I said, there's just all sorts of different activities we've tied in directly so that every My Life Plan lesson has a connection in Naviance. They access Naviance generally through their school's website. So when I was back on that, I'll just show you really quick. Did I still have it up? Yeah, here it says, so it tells them to log on to Naviance and go to our school website. So whatever, for Edison, it would, these are generic slides, so they're for the whole district. So, but they would go to the Edison website, hover over the student drop-down menu, and then the word Naviance is there, and they click on it, and they can get right in. They can also get in without, they can just go to like naviance.com, but then you need to know the school's website. So like here, this is, whoever wrote this probably was a Southwest counselor, so they put in the Southwest zip code, but you would put in 55418 for Edison. Most students kind of know this because, ideally these students have been doing this since 6th grade. They know how to get onto Naviance. But we also know that some kids have not figured it out, or they're new. They really haven't been accessing it as they should. So you can go to student.naviance.com and then know the zip code of the school, and they can get in. It's also important for us to know that students, when they log in, our district opted for a single sign-on option, which means that they're not adding they don't create their own username and password or their own email and password. We've set it up that it matches the district sign-on that they use for all Minneapolis public school computers and all MPS sites. So it's just a shortened username and password that's consistent across all of our systems. And the difficulty of that is, it's kind of hard to explain, but a student has to be, that individual student has to be logged into their computer And then it will automatically tie into the single sign-on option. They can just put that in. If for some reason a student, like, well, just for me as an example, if, I'm working with a student and I'm logged on to my laptop and I have the student, I'm like, well, let's just go on to Naviance on my laptop. It won't work because I'm already signed on with a single sign-on. And so they wouldn't be able to access that. And maybe this is too much information, but it's one of the issues that counselors and coordinators sometimes struggle with our students, and why I'm not going to be able to show you everything that a student sees because I'm logged in. It's just really, everything's just really tied to that single sign-on. So I don't know, maybe it will make sense as I move along.
Would a student be able to log in from a personal computer at home?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
because when they,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
yes, the answer is yes, because once they sign in to, they're on Minneapolis Public School websites, like they're on their Google Meets and Google Classrooms and stuff, it automatically triggers that single sign-on. But it might be difficult, for instance, if two students are sitting together and sharing one computer, and one student did their survey and then they hand it to the other student, that other student wouldn't be able to log in because the computer's tied to them, to the first student.
Could that student log off completely and the other student log in completely to their single sign-in portal? Or is it
They can, yeah, with Chrome, with how the Minneapolis Chromebooks are set up for students, yes, they can do that. But they'd have to completely log off their whole MPS and then log in as a new student.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not that techie, but we've certainly learned that this is the issue. All right. Any questions before I switch us over to Naviance so you can see what it looks like? Or actually, you can ask questions while I navigate over there because it's probably logged out. Let's see. No, it actually isn't. Okay, so I'm logged in. I'm going to show you Naviance 3 ways. I'm going to show you Naviance from the back end first. So this is what counselors and coordinators have access to. And you won't have access to this back end side of it, but it will kind of illustrate what's there. And will also show you kind of the preliminary work that we'll ultimately need to get from counselors in order for you to know where the student's at. Then I'll show you what the student sees, and then and I'll show you this student specifically. And then I will show you a demo student that kind of shows even more. So this kind of all ties in back to partly that single sign-on, because I can't show you everything that Raphael sees on his end. But anyway, Raphael is applied for Pre-ETS services. Hopefully he's filled out all his forms, but he was the best example that I could give. Also, I know him because he went to the middle school I used to work at. So that was kind of fun. So there's a tab at the top I clicked on here that says My Life Plan. And this is how Naviance has adapted, specifically to our school district. That's why that tab exists. And it shows us here what Raphael has completed. So these completed tasks, he's been a student in Minneapolis Public Schools, I think since 7th grade. I say that because I don't see any 6th grade tasks in this list. But I do see 7th, 8th, 9th, and so on. So those are things he's completed in the past. And these are his current tasks. Now, the only thing this year that's going to show up as a current task that needs to be done is the current grade level of the student. And that's because we restarted everything when we revised our curriculum. In the future, a student might have, who's a senior, might also have 11th and 10th grade or even 9th grade tasks showing up here too. And those would indicate to us things that that student didn't do in the grade level. They missed it. And you'll find out, especially when we are talking through some of this, that's part of the beauty of working with this Pre-ETS program, because a lot of our students with disabilities do have things that are missing that never got met in the classroom for various different reasons. And also why we're revised our My Life plan to be more inclusive of all of our students. So for instance, for whatever reason, even though this 12.1 welcome survey was at Edison High School was delivered to all students in probably September, Raphael didn't complete it. And no one's gone back in there to help him complete it. This kind of highlights again how helpful Pre-ETS services will be for our students with disabilities. It also highlights to me that we have to do a better job of helping students complete their milestones. So basically, Raphael has everything for this year. He hasn't really done anything as a senior that I can tell from this side as marked off. But let's take a look at a similar, he didn't complete 12.1, but last year he completed the beginning of the year check-in. And so we're going to take a look at his answers. So I'm viewing this from the back end again of what a counselor coordinator can see. When you log in with a student and, assuming either, for now, you're doing this maybe through screen sharing, but eventually sitting side by side with a student or group of students, they're able to see their results on their end too, and therefore share it with you. But it's also something that as we're planning with working with a student, we could like print this out or copy and paste it or whatever, so you have some background information for what students have completed. So he took this beginning of the year check-in last year, and the questions that were included last year on this were, how do people who know you best describe you? Raphael's, kind of hip and cool. He's like, I'm chill. He wrote down some of his strengths that are going to help him be successful. He's going to stay on task. That's get to school on time. He didn't share any concerns that he thought his school counselor should know about. This was last year's survey, so it's a little different than what it would look like now, but I'm going to skip down to these are things he wants help with that are academic, planning time for homework and get his work done. He didn't say anything about personal social, but he specifically said things that he wanted help with for career and college planning. So he does want to know what careers match his skills and interests. He wants to be prepared for high school and for education after high school, and getting his work all caught up. He said if he could choose a career today, he'd be a barber because he likes cutting hair. He plans to do some college, but probably not a 4-year degree. Couple other questions that we keep track of if students are first generation, and he would be, and he didn't answer the questions about college. Now, this is last year's survey. It's rewritten for this year, so it would look a little different, and I'll show you what the 12th grade one looks like. So, in addition to the My Life plan, seeing what he's completed, what he's not completed, and being able to see some of the responses to things. So it says he took a career interest inventory, but when I click on where I should also be able to find that information is under the student's careers. And it said he did not take the career interest profiler. So that career interest inventory is built into Naviance, and if he had taken it, I would have those results. I looked into that, and he's also has never gone in and saved any careers, which is a couple of the lesson plans that we have to do so with students. And so I was kind of intrigued by that. So I reached out to Edison and I said, how come it's marked as complete here that he did it, or career interest inventory completed, but it's not there. Well, it turns out that at Edison, this is another reason why we wanted to revise the My Life plan, is that some people felt, some of our district counselors and coordinators were using other things besides Naviance because they thought they were more helpful or meaningful to the students. So they completed a different interest inventory. So at Edison, Raphael completed interest inventory on virtual job shadow, and his results are here. He took it a year ago in November, and it just basically ranks the career clusters on an interest inventory. So we still have those results, but that's like requires that to get this information to you for a student who's applied for Pre-ETS, the counselor has to do a little bit more digging for you to find this information, but it should still be out there. So Raphael has the highest interest in the career cluster of arts, technology, and communication. Secondly, health science. He's kind of all over the place. He's got lots of interests. The lowest being manufacturing. Not so much into that science and stuff, but.
Are you showing another page? I still see the Naviance site. Are you?
Oh, I was, but I guess.
Sorry.
Need to stop share and switch so that.
Yeah. All right, let me see if I can find it here. Okay, now can you see it?
Yep.
Something different? Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, thanks
It's
for
okay.
interrupting. So yeah, so this is the results of the career interest inventory he took on another site called Virtual Job Shadow. And so, yeah, that's, now the thing is that this might be helpful for whoever's working with Raphael and be like, yeah, I'm still most interested in the arts. I just want to explore that. And maybe he and working with him, feel like there's no need to do another career interest inventory. On the other hand, maybe this isn't enough information, doesn't hurt to do another interest inventory. Even though he didn't complete the career interest profiler on Naviance last year, he can still do it. And so I will show you what that, I think I'm gonna have to stop sharing, go back to my other one, huh?
While you're doing that, Debbie,
Yeah.
we have a license for virtual job shadow too.
Oh, cool.
So I'm just wondering, I wonder if there's a way to somehow do some linking or something, but I don't know. We could talk about that later. Just plant that seed for now.
Yeah, that's good to know. We also use virtual job shadow for a lesson with our 8th graders. So some students would have results from that, that you might be working with that, when they get older. So if there's a way to share information. So now I'm going to switch over to viewing this as so before I do that. So this individual student, I should be able to, when I click on careers, ideally, there'd be careers populated here that he's saved, that he clicked on through doing different career research and kind of starred them or favorited them, and they'd be listed here. And I'd have the results of his interest profiler if he had taken it on Naviance. I'm going to click on the college tabs. If and when students have applied for colleges, we would have the information here. Raphael has not done that yet. So there's different things. Again, this is something that we would do in preparation for the first meeting with the student. Or maybe not the very first meeting, but being able to check in, what has he done? What does he still need to do? What would be helpful and things like that. If I'm going to switch over to the student side here, and that is not the screen I wanted, so I'm actually going to I didn't want it to go to this right now. Let's not do that. Sorry, just a second while I kind of recalibrate this, and hopefully it will work the way I want it to. All right. See, I think this is again, kind of that single sign-on problem. It's like wanting to connect to my computer because I clicked on something else before, and that's not what I wanted it to do. Because I should be able to go directly to his page here, not a login page. Try it one more time. Yep, it's not letting me. One more try. I'm gonna
I wonder if you did it in a different browser because Google's gonna recognize you.
yeah,
or it's not, you do.
I know. Sorry to make you sit through this. Think of any questions while we're
We get to see more of it.
No worries.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough because in my role that I have, I can go see students in any schools. So I have to enter into Edison. Students, hopefully this re-kicked it, I hope. Yay, it worked. Okay, so now I am seeing things basically the way Raphael will see them. So this is a main page, landing page. And again, if he had some favorited careers, he could click on this and they would show up. For whatever reason that Edison, when he was working with them, they just weren't using Naviance. They were using that virtual job shadow. And the unfortunate piece of that is that since those two systems don't talk to each other, things didn't get saved here. But the cool thing is he could go in and take that career interest profiler. And if he was logged on to his own computer right now, he'd click there and he'd be able to take that. And then he would have those results here, and then he could save some. He could also just go to explore careers, and you've all seen systems that look like this. He could put in whatever, barber. At one point he said that. And
so I have a quick question. So right now you're on the student Naviance.
Correct.
Like you're on as a student. So when we're working with students, and if we're doing Zoom calls like this, they would be sharing their screen with us, I'm assuming, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So it would be a lot of like, hey, see on the top, see that career tab, click on that. Let's see what comes up.
So there's really no way for us to ever kind of log in to the system ourselves and share our screen in case they had, computer issues or something.
It would be tricky. I don't want to say there's no way. It's something that we could, explore as we sort of move through these things. We'd have to talk more about that. So I think if we ran into specific issues like that, we would have to problem solve them and figure out how we could do that. So I had just been on Explore Careers. I clicked on Barber because he said that it just gives you, information, and then he could save it if it was something he'd want to go back to. When they click on their planner and tasks, it shows, it's like, hey, you need to do that welcome survey. He could click on that and do this with you. And if this was his computer, this would be a link. You click there and be able to do the welcome survey. It's also where he can see, like where I was showing you the beginning of the year check-in that he did last year. If you wanted to look over what he had written, again, if I was actually him, I'd be able to see the answers that I had put here. These are the same things that I showed you the example before, but it's how it works with now the other cool thing, if he had done assessments, all the results would be here. He hasn't done any of these assessments. So again, Raphael's a perfect example, and actually the other two as well, of all the things that could be done as a Pre-ETS provider with Raphael, depending on what he needs and what he's looking for. The one other thing I wanted to show you before I go off here is ideally, again, I clicked on portfolio here. This is something like for, in the example, you know, at Southwest that we used for their student happened to have many things completed. And so when we looked at the portfolio, there were assessment results and things. This just, again, saying what tasks have been done and completed and what have yet to be done. If he had written any goals formally on Naviance, they'd be written here. Careers he saved, interest profiler results, things like that. And then colleges if it got to that point. So this is something that ideally all of our students will have a portfolio. This is where Raphael is not a great example for various different reasons, but other students might have this like awesomely pretty planned out when you clicked on their portfolio. One other thing is we talked about the possibility of where pre-ETS and students could share things to put the work that you're doing onto Naviance and note it is through this journal option. And the journal, whatever is written here, we could also use goals as well, but I think journal might be good. You could have the student type in what they did and what they completed, and then it would show up on our back end. You know, the counselor, whoever's also working with, it would be documented here, and it would also show up in the portfolio component. So that might be a cool thing that we decide to use for pre-ETS. Because I think there's, I thought journal was here. Goals are here for sure. Maybe not journal. Anyway, we're exploring that as an option.
Yeah,
Are you
because we
imagining with the journal, the possibility, because we're not going to be, as pre-ETS providers, able to write in there directly, but we would maybe provide something to cut and paste?
Yeah, that would be great. Or just have the student, you know, write in there that, you know, just, I mean, it doesn't have to be intense. It could just be met with pre-ETS provider completed interest inventory, you know, within a date, and then it would save. But right, cutting and pasting, that, you know, anything to do to help the student obviously is a good thing. All right, so I'm just going to navigate one more thing, but while I'm doing that, did you have, how are you with questions right now?
I have another question. So now you're back to the page, which is considered the back, I wrote this down, the back end where only the counselors can see this?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how, like, because the individuals that we've been working with, I know there's a lot of technical difficulties sometimes. And if we can't get together because of COVID or, you know, depending upon where that goes, I'm just trying to figure out the best way. And like for individuals, like Jay was saying, cut and paste, that are not very, you know, confident with their typing skills. That's where sometimes we would do that for them if we were able to share their screen.
Yeah. Yeah, and right, I know there's the limitations of being able to get in to Naviance on your own. And that would be great because then you could like kind of fill it out. But I mean, that's actually sort of why Naviance does block it, because they don't want other people to take surveys or something for students, even though it would be helpful. do that for some of our students. So I think that's a really good thing to note, like, how are we going to be able to do this the easiest way? And, you know, I imagine that you're, you know, in email communication with them. So if you can, you know, send them an email even live while you're with them and say, okay, did you get the email? Can you copy and paste that in? Things like that.
Well, and that's my other question too. Is like I said, I don't know the varying degrees of individuals that the school, but I just know the adults that I'm working with, they would not know how to copy and paste. So that's why I'm just, you know, I'm trying to figure out things of how we can get an individual to type in information, because looking at all this, I mean, it looks amazing, but for somebody with a disability, I can see how it would be very overwhelming, especially if they're not confident in their, you know, their typing skills, or just overall how to get things from, you know, their mind to paper, you know, to have it all documented how they really want. So that's why I'm trying to figure out or throw that back out there just to see if there's better options.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also wondering, is there a way, like in their portfolio or somewhere, to just save certain documents that they've done? So somehow we could, it still requires helping the student to do it, but somehow to upload it. At least if we had like a note or something, it could be uploaded.
Yes, and I believe there is, you know, I just clicked on, you know, I clicked on documents here and I clicked on upload. So definitely from our end, let's see if the student, I imagine, has that opportunity too. But I do recognize what you're saying. I think it was Tammy. And that is, you know, that is why a lot of our students with disabilities have been left out of this process, because when they're sitting in the classrooms, they're just not able to access things that, you know, other students are. And so that's why we find a lot of holes in their My Life plans, because they just weren't able to complete it. And so it's the opportunity of Pre-ETS. It's also the challenge for us as a district to figure this out for our students with disabilities. And I think the unique challenge of working remotely through distance learning makes this process even harder. I think, you know, we would be having a totally different kind of conversation when you know that you'd be able to pick up a Chromebook and sit right next to the student and they could verbally tell you things and you're just typing it into their computer and it will go much smoother. But it's definitely a challenge during distance learning.
So I have a question about Naviance itself. I mean, obviously it's a company. I mean, has anyone, whether it's your district, I don't know, maybe I'm really going broad here, but reached out to Naviance because of all, you know, like that's kind of like an accommodation for every school district, especially with our distance learning right now. I mean, are they just on such a broad scope that we could not even reach somebody? I mean, I guess I've never, you know.
What would we be asking them?
Asking if that we, like certain individuals, like for us, because we are from an agency, would be able to be given permission, like as long as it's up to the school district to give us permission to be able to log in to their accounts. But I'm assuming as long as the school district is okay with it, and obviously we'd probably, you know, we have to sign something just like we sign something with every individual we work with, standard release of information, you know, protecting the school, protecting the student, protecting ourselves. But reaching out to Naviance, because that would be, you know, for a company that big, and obviously they're dealing, this is what they do, but they also need to look at, I guess, the accommodations, especially in our time of doing everything virtual.
Yes, no, I do have someone I can reach out to. I'm making a note to myself to do that and help me kind of think through how we could accommodate our students with disabilities so that you have more control over the being on Naviance and the screen sharing and talking to the kid where you're doing more of the work. So I will definitely look into it. I'm sure they will come up with some ideas. It might not be exactly what we're looking for, but they'll definitely answer my question. So I added that to my notes.
Perfect.
Debbie, this is Lindsay. I just have a question. So we're in the student side here, and when you were in the other side behind the scenes, it looked fairly easy to upload. Where would Raphael go to upload documents?
I was just gonna look and see. I'm sure there's, I'm trying to think of where something like that might exist. Actually, I'm going to try and navigate now to demo student, because seeing again, like the issues that we just faced with navigating this, that Raphael, there's things that I can see, but I can't really do anything with them because it's his screen. So when I'm a demo student, I can kind of see. But anyway, this might be a little tricky. So now I actually want that.
While you're doing that, Debbie, I can say that, having approached this, one of the things that I'll do with students is have them, have everything that I have. So they have a folder within Google Docs that are the things that we've worked on. So they take ownership, and, to start with just understanding how tabs work. Start with knowing how to log into your Google account, really. And then using cut and paste, to just get that out of the way up front and early has really been helpful. Some folks are on board right away. They're already able to do that, and that becomes very clear. And the ones that aren't typically can work through it. I haven't run into an exception yet. I'm sure there will be.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know the range of student ability. I mean, the students have been doing this learning from home stuff for a while. So we might be surprised at the things that they have learned and are able to do that we think they might not be able to do. But I also know that our students are still struggling with that as well. So it's again, case by case. So now it looks the same as Raphael's screen, except for now I'm just in a demo student. So I have much more control over, so for instance, with the welcome survey, so this would be more what it would really look like for if I was Raphael right now. Except for this isn't his screen. This is just a generic one, but I can see it says to complete this task, you need to take the survey. I can click there. A student would be able to do that. So these are the current questions for our beginning of the year check-in. So what kind of academic help do you want? What kind of career and college help do you want? Personal, social. Biggest stressors in my life right now. This was like a big new question we added especially for, I'd like help finding group club, something. First in the family, I have a family member in the military. These are the senior questions that are specific to seniors. I understand the post-secondary application process. These are like pre-test questions, and then we sort of ask the same questions in the end of the year to kind of gauge if they learn something through my life plan. but I wanted to show that as an example. So it's only 12 questions. They're pretty short. So like this could be done with all 3 of the students that I was given their name. None of them have completed the 12.1 welcome survey. And this is something like back to Tammy's point. It does not require a lot of typing in or anything. You know, if you were working with the student, you maybe could help read, making sure they're reading and understanding what these options are. But they're just clicking a box. So it's a little more straightforward. And then once they completed it, it would show up on all of their documents that they completed it. Same with the careers. They would be able to take the assessments that are listed here. Do What You Are is the personality one that's now given to students in 9th grade. But if they've never taken it, they still have access to it. Strengths Explorer is awesome. It's through the Gallup poll. We used to give it to students in 8th grade, and currently we don't give it to any students, like specifically tied to a college and career curriculum. But if they've never taken it, they can take it at any time. It's only given once. I mean, you can only take it once. So if they did take it as an 8th grader, they can't retake it. But every other assessment that's on Naviance, we can reset. So even if they had taken the career interest profiler, but they want to retake it, they're more focused now, we can reset it. So you would just have to have the counselor for that student reset it so they could take it again. And again, this is something that they could do with you online, sharing screens pretty easily. I think.
Can you go into the About Me tab? Because I feel like when you were in showing us the first survey, I do feel like the document area was in there.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna look up.
Okay.
I forgot.
Here we are. There's resume, document. Oh, document shared with me.
Ooh, what's that?
I think it was, yeah, that's a good question. I don't even know. I don't know if this is something that, I don't know. I guess if I see that there's like resources here and stuff, so I don't know if this is a way for counselors to share documents that are, these are really old. But this is a counselor. So they shared a PDF through Naviance to all the students. And it gave them a Achieve Handbook resume. I'm on the Southwest side right now, so that's what, or a 9th grade resume template looks like. Did that open? Can you see the resume template?
No.
Oh, that's okay. So those are, sorry, I'm just trying to get out of whatever I'm in.
I'm thinking, Debbie, I mean, these are things we could look at later too, and just try to be pondering this a little more. And oops, I'll put my video on. Yeah, in terms of how I mean, the one key piece definitely is like how we can document what we do with the student, whether it be a VRS staff or a provider, and having it all in that one place. So the journal, or if it's uploading something, so that's something we could maybe even, and we have a meeting with the counselors too, maybe they'd have some thoughts.
Yep, I'll put that note too. I'm sure there is some place where there's options for uploading. so we can explore that more. I have started a list of probably like 10 things between the 2 meetings that we've had of things that we want to follow up on. So definitely look at that. I guess I had one more screen, but basically, you know, it was just trying to think through, you know, like how, I'll show the last screen so I can finish up our, okay, where'd it go? Here it is. All right, so what are you seeing? A presentation.
Yep, it says Naviance at the top.
Okay. All right, so I mean, this is just my final screen. So, you know, how we can put this all together working with Pre-ETS, you know, ideally, we got the school counselor on board who can kind of do some digging. One of the things that we've run into is that we have a counselor at each site working with the Pre-ETS program, but they don't see all the students. And so we're going to problem solve with the counselors because Joyce at Edison, she works with seniors. She should have access to all seniors, but say a 10th grader applied, she wouldn't necessarily know that 10th grader would be assigned to a different counselor. So we'd have to think through about how we can do this digging and get some background information before you even meet with the student. But then when that student meeting happens, you know, what does the student want to learn? What do they have that's still pertinent? And what information do they still need? What are they wanting to get out of working with you? And then, you know, kind of the next step is doing the screen sharing or ultimately in person, going on Naviance and kind of poking around and seeing what would be helpful and where are the holes and what does the student want to do that would help them. And you'll have access again to the My Life Plan folder for lessons. So, you know, if you're like, oh, they want to talk about finances, but I don't know where to start, you know, about how they're going to pay for college or something. And then you'd have that slideshow and that overview to work with them. And then when you complete something like that, that a student hadn't previously done, but you can see it's a Naviance thing, then we could just communicate back to the counselor so that they can mark it off.
So in terms of like, here we are now, and then we'll meet again in a month. So I think we talked like with the Southwest team, you know, just if you can with the students that are enrolled or becoming enrolled, start to try it out with some of them, kind of ask them to bring up their Naviance, look at you're going to give the access to the My Life Plan curriculum, you know, people can start looking at that and how you might use that with the students. And then we can be talking between now and then about some of the pieces that you've been writing notes about. You all can be sending in questions as you have them too. And so then when we gather in a month, we can kind of catch up on where we're at and try to just keep this moving forward.
That sounds good. I think that the more that you actually are trying it with a student, the questions will come naturally and we'll be able to problem solve as we go along. But right now it still feels a little theoretical and we just got to put it into practice.
Yeah, I think that's the best way forward. I think that's something that us as providers, I think, are good at, is give us something that we kind of understand but need to figure out, and we'll poke holes in it, figure out questions, and say, all right, how do we do this? So this seems like the information that we needed to really take a big step forward. So thank you for this. Jay, any thoughts?
No, this is really helpful. It seems like a great beginning. It'll be a learn as we do kind of thing, and this has just been a good leap forward with that. So thanks.
Are there I know we don't have a lot of time for other things. Are there any other questions right now, just in terms of the pilot in general? I know one thing we've talked about is we really want to be tracking the students that, any student that's enrolled in VRS services at Edison and Southwest are officially a part of our pilot, and we want to be able to track that. So we're still going to talk about that too, how we can have like a spreadsheet somewhere so we can be starting to talk about who's all enrolled and where they're at. But are there any other questions that you all have just in general in our last couple minutes here?
For Stephanie and Song, I would ask, we'll try our best. We're trying our best to be able to anticipate students as they come in, because Jay and Tammy both have people that they're currently working with, and we might have to do some shifting to make sure that they're able to accommodate students as they come in. So as much information as you can give us, as far as, we have this many students who may be coming in and we think it might be this time frame. And clearly I understand that a lot of it is on the student and the family to get the paperwork filled out, signed, sent in before we can move forward. But anything that you kind of have in the works that you can share with us, and maybe just your best guess at a timeline of when we could anticipate to potentially see referrals, I think that will help us to be best prepared for that.
This is Song. I just want to say that during the winter break, we have a couple applications that came back. We have about six applications that came back. So I'm working with Jane and Joyce to set up our first meeting. It takes a little longer just because we have so many people that we need to meet. So we're looking at parent schedules, student, and my schedule, the school staff schedule. So we're working on that. As soon as we get that first appointment done, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we'll be reaching out to MSS and let you know where the student is at. A lot of them so far that I know are already cut out with My Life Plan. We know for sure one of the student, he will be needing help with the My Life Plan. So after that first meeting, I would definitely reach out to MSS team and to let you know where we're at with the student and let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Song. I know it's a lot of organizing. Appreciate all your work. Okay, well, again, so do what you can in the next month. And as I said, just send in the questions and we're figuring this out as we go. So
maybe this is or isn't a conversation for the whole group, but as I'm thinking about, looking at like My Life Plan, having the meetings with the students, do we have an idea of what the authorizations are going to look like and how fluid that sort of thing is going to be? Are we going to try to get everything in one go? Is it going to be a lot of back and forth of, hey, we're going to do this now, can you authorize this service, or can we add this service? Has that played out yet at all with Southwest, or has that been anything that's been discussed?
I don't know what you mean by.
We didn't talk about it's like on our end, VRS authorizing to MSS per student. You remember that back in the day, Debbie? So what I would imagine though is that after that first meeting, their needs are going to be assessed and they're going to be referring like this student needs this, these different pre-ETS. And so I would imagine then Song would authorize that, you'll know that from that point and you guys can talk about it. So I imagine it'll be easier again once you have an actual student and that student gets referred.
I just want to add on to that too, because Jay is working with my first Edison student, and we completed our first meeting to let Jay know what the student is looking at to do. And after that first meeting, Jay getting to meet with the student a couple times after that, he found out that the student needed, additional more stuff from what we first initially talked about. We find out the student wants to do like informational interviews, explore a little bit more on the post-secondary to touch, even though he completed My Life Plan, there are some things like in the post-secondary exploration that The student might want Jay to go back and review with him more in depth about that. So Jay, communicate with me. I would say just communicate with me ahead of time so that way we can get those additional services included in the authorization. So yeah, so just communication. If you find out, the student will be needing more additional services as you work with the student, just send me an email, give me a heads up so the authorization can get that done.
Yeah, that went smoothly, Song. Thanks. Roland's a pleasure to work with too. He's just a delight.
That's awesome.
No, we're over, but I'll lob in one final question. Should we be doing Naviance My Life Plan work with that student that Jay's already working with?
I would say, I think that that'd be a good student to start to try it out with, like ask them to pull up their account. I would think the counselor could say what they've completed, but again, even if they've completed it, I think we still want to review if it's, because on that initial form, if they say they have a need, say in job exploration counseling, it lists which of the My Life Plan milestones are associated with job exploration counseling. I would say if that student needs job exploration counseling, those milestones should be reviewed, like what they've completed in Naviance, and then have that conversation. And then if you're seeing the student need, isn't resonating with something they've already done, then that's a sign to do that lesson again with them or pull some pieces out of it. So I would say start trying that. But Debbie, go ahead.
Well, I just got to say, it's really tricky right now. It's not super straightforward. So if someone says to you that a student completed all their My Life Plan things, it doesn't match up because, is how much of it is actually in Naviance? How much of it can we access? How much of it just disappeared because we restarted our system? So I think when we meet with the counselors, we need to be kind of, there's going to have to be a little bit more digging on what's actually completed. Just because something's marked off doesn't mean the student completed it.
I think across the board, I think maybe our general practice with this pilot isn't, even if it's marked off, doesn't matter. I mean, it matters. We can acknowledge it and talk about it and, hey, you did this. But I think we should revisit anything related to the needs they have. That's what I would say.
100% agree.
That makes it easier for us to, instead of picking and choosing what does and what isn't still valid, just kind of start from scratch.
I default to what the student says.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, that's all my last minute questions. Thank you.
Okay, well, I know we're after the time, so thanks,
Hey,
everybody.
hold on. Say, Debbie, Alyssa, Song, and Stephanie, do you got 2 minutes that we can chat for a quick minute? Not about Edison.
I do. I'm supposed to be in another meeting right now, but I can stay for like a minute.
Okay. All right. How do we want to handle Fair School? Because Stephanie is working with Fair School. She's got referrals from them in the past, and they're reaching out with referrals now. Do we want to keep them entirely separate and not do any of this? What's the trickle over effect? Do we want to stick with MSS? Do we, because I still want to get, I wish I had my other pre-ETS counselors aboard, but what protocol do we want to do? Anything with Naviance? We don't want to bring any of it up, or
I think it would be great, but it's on your end to figure out how.
Okay. Well, all right. That's kind of where I was going to go. I'm just going to say it's kind of business as usual, and maybe we can use that as a comparison. And just because they've got, individuals, I know Stephanie, we talked earlier, and they've got, several individuals they want to refer, doesn't mean they're necessarily going to follow through. But maybe we can use that as a comparison, and the Excel spreadsheet that Song and Stephanie are sharing in OneDrive, tracking the students from Edison. Maybe we can indicate on that if there's students, other Minneapolis public school students that we could put on that, so you guys can see that too. So
can you guys share that with me?
Alyssa, you'd be able to look at it.
If you would share with me, I don't want to duplicate something you already have.
Yep.
But because I want to figure out how we track students.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Well,
It
Yeah,
might
I
give you a
was-
good, might give you a good means of comparison. So that's
Yeah.
all. So,
Well, and I was gonna say with song, I need to get that updated to make sure our list is accurate right now too, and then I can send it to you, Alyssa, because I've kind of been trying to monitor it, so.
Well, yeah, if you have it
Okay,
in
that
OneDrive,
was
you
my
can send me
question.
the link and then I can just see the updated information.
Yeah. I'll figure it out.
Okay, we'll talk more. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. All
Thank
right,
you.
that's it. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Yep.